So Kong Konnect is the SaaS control plane from Kong. But I guess a number of you are asking, where do I even get started? How do I get the ball rolling? So I'm going to do a tutorial with you today to set up a control plane and then connect it with the data plane, add a couple of plugins and test out our traffic going through. So let's jump straight into the Konnect portal. This is the overview or login page of the Konnect portal, where it gives you an overview of what's going on. So some analytics, what's happening with my gateway manager, how many control planes I've got, my catalog, if you're using that on your developer portal. There's a whole lot of learning as well at the bottom where they've got some tutorials and documentation. So worth exploring if Konnect is new to you. I'm going to jump into the API gateways under the connectivity section. So jumping into this, I then get all of the gateway managers that I have created. Now, these are effectively your control planes. So these are the isolated control planes, which you will be connecting your data planes to. So let's go ahead and create one of these. So I'm going to, in this tutorial, create everything manually, and then in the next tutorial, I will be doing it using infrastructure as code. So we're going to go with a self-managed hybrid control plane. You can also do the Kubernetes ingress controller. That's just a read-only view of what's being configured in your cluster. A dedicated cloud gateway, which is the SaaS data plane, and then the serverless, which again is SaaS. You can see it says at the top here, Kong hosts in the cloud. So let's give this a name. So I'm going to call it Gateway Guy. If you want, you can give it a description, and there are some labels as well. So I'm just going to give it an environment label and just say it's dev. Then going to the next step. This is where it actually helps you to configure everything. And this is quite a nice, nifty way of being able to get the ball rolling very quickly. You wouldn't do this in production, but if you want to just do something as a POC, I recommend starting here and then moving on to doing things properly using infrastructure as code and rolling that out through your environments. So again, it always defaults to the latest version, which is 3.12. So I'll leave that there. I'm going to change this and say that I'm running on Kubernetes. So running on Kubernetes. And then what it does is it actually gives you how you set this up using Helm. So creating a namespace, adding the Helm repo, updating, and also allowing you to generate certificates. So let's go with that and generate our certificate. So it's generated me a certificate and a key, and these are what are used to communicate between the data plane and the control plane. So it's that secure web socket that's created between the control plane and the data plane, where you have your configuration coming down and your telemetry data going back up again. So that gets generated for us. This is Kong generating them. And I'll show you in a bit, these certificates are automatically uploaded to the control plane for you. Now, if you were doing this yourself, and we'll do this in the next tutorial, you have to generate those certificates yourself. Maybe in an organization, you request it with the security team, and then you need to manually upload that to the control plane and use it in your data plane as well. So, but here, Kong gives you the command for you to effectively create a Kubernetes secret from these two keys that are created here. Finally, we're given the Helm override values file. And this effectively is what you can use to deploy your data plane. So just looking at it very quickly, it sets the repository and the tag for the Docker image that will be used. And this is the Kong Enterprise Docker image. It mounts a secret as a volume. And this is the certificates that we've just generated up here and created as a secret. So that gives those secrets, those certificates to the pod so that it has access to them. And then you'll see we are configuring Kong to read those from the file system. The admin API is disabled because this is running as a Konnect data plane. And then these environment variables are all of the Kong environment variables. These are the settings that are going to Kong, the application running on the pod, and configures it to connect up to Konnect. The main ones here to look at: the cluster control plane, the cluster server name, and the telemetry endpoints. And you'll see there's this prefix at the front of a konghq.com URL. And this particular prefix is what's called a control plane prefix. Every control plane that is created within Konnect gets its own unique prefix. And this is what you use to identify which control plane to access. Few other settings as well. The other two, which are quite important, are the certificate and the key. And you can see that we're pointing to a folder on the file system. And this is effectively where this secret gets mounted. So we are accessing the certificate and the key that were generated up above. Then finally, it gives you the Helm command on how to install it, and then sits there waiting until it gets access to a new data plane node. Now, you don't have to keep it here. You can close this, but it's quite nice to leave it and just make sure that it does connect with those new data planes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do this now with you. So I'm going to come here, and first we're going to get our certificate. So I'm going to copy that. I'm then going to move across to my IDE, and I'm just going to paste these in here. I'm going to copy the key, and I'm going to paste the key in here as well. Okay, so now I've got my key and my certificate, which we generated. If I go to this install script, I've basically taken everything from that tutorial from Kong on how to install the data plane, and I've copied and pasted here. I've just changed the namespace. You can see I'm creating a secret, and I'm doing the Helm commands as well and installing it. In the values file, I'm basically just going to take this exact values file here. I'm not going to change it and just use it as is. And this is now what we're going to use to install our data plane. So now jumping across to my shell. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Kind cluster. So if you don't have Kind installed, I recommend using Kind. It's a local native Kubernetes cluster that I like using to test anything locally. So to create that, there is this Kind command, and the Kind command has a number of different commands you can use. So there is the create command. So I'm going to go Kind create cluster, and let's just do help and see what that looks like. So you've got Kind create cluster, and you can give it a whole lot of different parameters. So I'm going to create a cluster, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call it Gateway Guy. And then what this will do is it'll go off and it'll actually start creating my cluster for me. And then once it's ready, it's going to set the context to this particular cluster. That'll then give me the ability to be able to connect. So I like using K9. If you don't have that, I would recommend installing it. So K9, and I'll jump straight into my cluster. And you can see here, it's called Kind Gateway Guy. So I've now got my cluster. And if I have a look at that, you can see I've got nothing installed on that cluster. So let's go ahead and run that install script that we created before. So running that, what will happen is it's now going and creating everything. So you can see it's created my Kong demo namespace. It's now updating the Helm repo, and it's now installed Helm. So let's go into that and have a look at what's going on. Well, it's creating a single Kong data plane. So let's give that a little bit of time as it starts initializing and coming up. What we can have a look at while we're waiting is let's look at the secrets. And you can see that I've got a Kong cluster search secret. And if I have a look at that, you can see those are the two secrets that we created, the ones that were generated in the Konnect UI. So go back to my pods. Still initializing. And looking at this, you can see it's still pulling the image from Docker Hub. So that just takes a little bit of time. If it's the first time you are running this, obviously it takes longer. After that, it'll be a lot quicker. So just give it a few more seconds and then it will start initializing. And once it starts coming up and everything looks fine, you can see there it's turned to the running status. We will see it connect to our Konnect control plane. We can also have a look at the logs by pushing L, and you can see here are the logs and it's starting to log the start of that particular proxy. So there we go. It's gone 1.1 ready. It is running. So I'm now going to move all the way across, and you can see now in Konnect, my data plane node has been found. Brilliant. So I'm going to click done. So now in my control plane that I've just created, if I go to a data plane node, you will now see here is my connected data plane that I created on my local Kong cluster. And it's connected, gives me information about the version of Kong that it's running and whether the configurations are in sync or not. And this is really cool. It's really nice to be able to see this and understand what's going on. Now, let's have a look at those certificates that I spoke about, the ones that get automatically uploaded. So if I go to the overview of my control plane, and then in the top right-hand corner, I go actions, and there's the data plane certificate. Clicking on that, you can then see the certificate that got uploaded. So this is the default certificate that got uploaded and created at the start of this tutorial, the ones that Kong effectively generated. And if you have a look at it, you can see that these are Kong generated certificate. Now, you can actually from this panel also generate some more if you want, or you can upload your own certificate. So if you have it generated yourself, you can then upload the certificates here, and that means you can use your own generated certificates from your company as well. So let's go and let's create a very simple service. I'm going to come to Gateway Services, and I'm going to create a new one. And I'm just going to use a service that I really like using, which is just http bin.org/anything. And then I'm going to save that. So now that I've got a service, I'm going to add a root to this service. Add root. And this is just going to be a echo root. And the path is just going to be echo. So when I call echo, what this will do is it will effectively call HTTP bin. So I'm just putting a gateway in front of HTTP bin. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, so now if I go back to my data plane nodes, oh, that flashed very quickly, but it wasn't in sync, but it's now in sync. So these changes I've made to the control plane have now synced down to the data plane. So let's jump across to my data plane and have a look at what that looks like. If I port forward my port here, let me try 8001. I think I was sharing something else earlier, and I just make a call on 8001. What you'll see is I get no roots matched, and that's because I'm trying to hit the root of that data plane. If I then go and hit the echo service or the echo root, what you will see is this will come back with a mirror echo of the command that I just sent. There we go. It came through. You can see here, it's gone all the way through to HTTP bin, and this effectively is a echo of that particular request that I just made. So now if I want to go and add a plugin to this, we could do something very simple, like going to our root over here, and let's add a plugin. So let's go and add a key auth plugin. So enable key auth, that's on that, and it's going to be using the key name. So that effectively is the name of the header that will hold the key. And I'm going to add it to my root. Give that a second to sync. If I come here, that's synced across. And now if I come and I actually hit the same endpoint, what you'll see is I get no API key found in request. So you can see I'm able to make changes in the control plane, and those changes sync very quickly down to the data plane.